She said I had become a shadow. But a shadow is what remains when the light leaves. I didn't disappear. She just looked the other way. The soup was spicy. Vegetable with that same dill she always added at the end to keep the warmth in longer. I handed her a bowl and she barely nodded, her eyes fixed on the screen. On the TV, two actors argued about something trivial, their voices muffled like they were performing behind glass. The spoon clinked against the ceramic. Silence filled everything else. I sat across from her, holding my cup with both hands to keep from shaking. I wanted to say something about the new stove, about the song that played in the car that morning. About her. But I couldn't. The words stuck somewhere in my throat. She sighed. You're inside your head again. I nodded. Sometimes it's easier to stay silent than to get the tone wrong. She always noticed when I sounded off. Later that evening, I was looking for a charger in the drawer and stumbled across a photo. A family one. The three of us in Provence, those sticky, endless holidays. Julie was laughing, ice cream running down her wrist. Back then, she wasn't afraid to be silly. Or happy. But there was no frame. Just a photo pressed against the back wall of the drawer. She'd taken it down a week ago to update it. But did she ever put it back? On the wall, an empty rectangle, a mark where something important used to be. I started to feel something growing between us. Not anger. Not guilt. Something cold, invisible. Like aquarium glass, she's there, I'm here. I see her, but the air is different. The next day I woke up to the smell of coffee. But not to her touch. A sharp, unfamiliar scent, menthol, masculine. There was laughter in the kitchen. Her laughter, light, ringing, not the laugh she used to have with me. I hadn't heard that laugh in almost a year. I stood behind the door. Didn't go in. Just listened. Like a stranger. Like a shadow. And suddenly I realized he's here more often than I am. I started noticing things I used to dismiss. One day I found a coffee cup in the bedroom. I don't drink coffee there. Neither does she. An accident? Everything felt too soft. As if they weren't even trying to hide it. Or worse, weren't afraid of being caught. Sometimes I caught myself hoping to hear her lie. Let her say he's just a friend. Worse was her truth. The one that came without words, in her silence, in the slight shift of her body when I sat down beside her. I remembered how she once said, you always think but never say anything. Back then it sounded like concern. Now an accusation. Since then I've spoken less. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid to say the wrong thing. In the wrong tone. At the wrong rhythm. We no longer matched in rhythm. This morning she left earlier than usual. Said she had a client meeting. I stayed. Boiled the kettle. Walked through the house. On her nightstand was the book I gave her. The bookmark was still on the same page as a month ago. But the cover was worn. On the dresser, a receipt. Just a regular one. Cafe 32 degrees, 1 latte, 1 raf. And 2 pies to go. We've never been there. But I knew they had. I watched. The movements. The silences. How easy it became for her not to notice me. Not because I disappeared. But because she looked the other way. When you're a guest in your own home, silence speaks louder than words. And then comes a voice that shouldn't sound so free. I started noticing how he sounded within our walls. Not her voice, his. Lucas. He laughed too loud, too confidently. Like he knew he was being heard. Like he enjoyed it. Like he wanted me to hear. He spoke like he owned the place. Didn't ask where the spoons were, asked, where do you keep them now? Even left his cup not in the rack but by the sink as if sure someone would wash it. And the strangest thing, no one corrected him. Not once. Not even Julie. Especially not Julie. That day, I came home early. Julie's car was in the driveway like always. Inside, it was quiet. A silence where everything seemed in its place. Almost. On the table, his cap. Dark blue. Carelessly thrown like something someone would soon pick up. I came closer. Touched the fabric. It was warm. Not from the sun. From a body. I heard a door slam upstairs. Then water. Julie. I stepped back from the table. That evening I asked. Cautiously, quietly, almost apologetically. Was he here today? She didn't answer right away. Then sharply. You're starting again? He's just a neighbor. You always said he was like a son. I nodded. The words in my throat were cold, powerless. Too thin to break anything. And too late to save anything. That night I didn't sleep. Lay there, staring at the ceiling while her breathing beside me grew steady. And then I went to the kitchen. Nearby a phone. Not hers. Not my model. Charging as if at home. I didn't touch it. Just looked. On the screen, a wallpaper. A beach. Julie standing there in profile. Her smile was real. I knew that smile. Once it had been mine. Then I returned to bed. But sleep never came. Only voices in my head. His voice. And my own silence. I tried to convince myself it was all a misunderstanding. Coincidences. Misperceptions. But Lucas's voice sounded too free. Too confident. And my silence too much like fear. Sometimes when I come home, I pause at the door. Listen. And I don't hear her footsteps. Not her voice. I hear his. As if he's been living here a long time. And I just a passerby. A guest who stayed too long. And then comes the hardest feeling to admit. Not resentment. Not anger. Not even pain. Jealousy. Of the boy I once let under our roof. The one I considered almost a son. Memory offers an old image: Lucas at 7, scared, with a scraped knee. I was bandaging it and he looked at me like I was something solid. Like a father. And now he's in my house, in my kitchen, next to my wife. And he sounds like he never was a stranger. Sometimes betrayal doesn't sound like a scream, it's a quiet snap. Like the crack of glass in an empty room. I stepped into the living room and stopped. The frame lay on the floor, our family photo, the one from Province. The glass was cracked diagonally. A clean line, like a knife cut. It ran straight between me and Julie. We were together, but now on opposite sides of the fracture. I picked it up carefully, 2 fingers on the edge to avoid getting cut. Still, I felt the chill of the glass slide under my skin. Julie came out of the kitchen. Saw me with the frame. I meant to replace the glass, she said calmly. It's been cracked for a while. But I knew it was whole just yesterday. I had dusted it. Myself. I nodded. Better to nod than argue. Better to keep the version than seek the truth that hurts. That evening, after she went to shower, I stepped into the kitchen. I held her mug in my hand. It was still warm. Like that baseball cap. When she came back, I asked, "Did we have someone over today?" She didn't even turn around. No. The next day I came home early. Wanted to. I don't even know. To check. To catch. Or maybe just to see. The door was slightly ajar. Not forgetfulness, trust in an empty house. I entered quietly. Took off my shoes so the floor wouldn't creak. Laughter came from the living room. I froze in the hallway. Behind the wall, her voice. Lively. Light. Like back when we first met. Back then she only laughed like that with me. Now with him. I stepped closer. Julie and Lucas were sitting on the couch. Watching a movie. He said something and she laughed. Threw a pillow at him. He caught it and laughed too. Like it was their world. And I, the noise outside the door. I didn't go in. Just watched until they noticed me. And suddenly I realized I'm no longer part of this picture. Like a photo fallen from its frame. Like glass that didn't shatter from an impact but from time. That night I stayed in the study. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't breathe in the same room with her. In my head, her laughter. Over and over. And his. Light, careless. Too familiar. Sometimes the cracks don't show on glass. They're inside. You feel them when you hold a mug that no longer belongs to you. When you see her eyes and there's someone else in them. When the voice that used to call you sounds different. Doesn't call anymore. I still held that photo. Didn't fix the glass. Didn't put it away. Left it on the shelf cracked. Divided. Sometimes it's easier to leave the wound open than pretend it isn't there. I wasn't looking for the truth. I was hoping it would explain itself. But at some point, you're no longer standing at the door, you are the door. Between the past and something that no longer invites you in. I stood on the threshold like at the edge of a cliff. One step and you're in it. One step and you admit you're a guest in your own home. The scent of his deodorant hit me again. I remembered how Julie used to say she couldn't stand strong smells. Now they seemed normal. In the kitchen, 2 mugs. Not put away. As if the morning was still going. As if it was their morning and I had just walked in by mistake. I picked up my mug. Poured water. Didn't drink. I decided to try. One more time. I invited her for a walk. Out of town. Like we used to. Showed her the forecast, offered a blanket, a thermos. She looked past me. I'm tired. You should have suggested this a year ago. I wanted to say I had. That I tried. That I called her back when she had already stopped hearing. But I didn't. Because I knew it wasn't about being tired. That evening she stepped out of the bathroom. She was wearing my old sweater. The one I hadn't seen in ages. Gray with stretched sleeves. For a second, my heart jumped. Maybe there's still hope? Maybe it's a sign? I stepped closer. And then I caught the scent. It was unfamiliar. Fresh, too sharp, with a note of tobacco. I don't smoke. And the sweater didn't sit right. Not on the shoulders. Not in the memory. As if it had been stretched by arms that weren't mine. I wanted to ask. But the door clicked. And I was left standing in the hallway. Between the bathroom and the kitchen. Between what was and what is. On the threshold. At that moment I understood I'm no longer here. I don't live in these walls. I just breathe beside them. I'm tolerated. Like a sound no one turns off because no one notices it anymore. Sometimes pain doesn't come suddenly. It's like a draft. Gradual. Cold. It makes the walls thinner. Makes you transparent. You don't leave. You just fade. Betrayal isn't always in words. Sometimes it's in the way someone looks away when you ask a direct question. Sometimes in the silence that answers what you already know. The fight started over milk. I really had forgotten to buy it. But it wasn't about the milk. You never listen. Julie's voice trembled, but not with hurt. With something firm. Even Lucas is more attentive. His name flared in the air. Like a knife thrown without hesitation. Clear. Precise. Without regret. I froze. Not out of anger. But because of how easily it slipped out. As if he weren't a guest. As if he'd always been part of this kitchen. You really compared me to him? I asked. She didn't answer right away. I'm not comparing people, she said. I'm comparing attention. I walked out onto the balcony. The air was damp. Piercingly quiet. The puddles reflected yellow windows like blurred memories. And in that reflection him. Lucas. Walking down our street. No jacket. No bag. As if he lived in a house without doors. I watched him and felt nothing. No rage. No fear. Only a question, when exactly did he become part of this landscape? He entered the house. I stayed by the window behind the glass. Heard her say. He's in a mood. Better not bother him. And silence. No, why, no, what happened? Just quiet agreement. As if he were now her shield. And I something they needed protection from. Later, when she went to shower, I picked up her phone. Not out of jealousy. But from the silence in which breathing had become impossible. The chat was titled, Talk Later, Smiley Face. Lucas's name wasn't visible, just the first message. I didn't scroll down. Just read one line. You're like a breath. With him, it's like fog. I put the phone back. Carefully. As if it could burn. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. They were trembling. Like after the cold. Or betrayal. I thought the first betrayal was her feelings for him. But now I realize it wasn't. The first betrayal was the glance away when you ask a question. Her calm voice when everything is falling apart. The way she pretends everything is fine. And you don't believe it anymore. But still stay silent. Because you're not ready to hear her say yes. You don't scream when it all collapses. You just go wash your hands and notice the water's cold, the faucet no longer warms. I stopped asking questions. It felt safer. Every word now was like glass, sharp, transparent, unnecessary. We lived like actors. Lines, movements, pauses, exits backstage. Only there were no applause. Just silence. Not oppressive. Convenient. Like an old coat, no longer warm but too familiar to throw away. I started leaving early. Coming back late. A habit to hide where it's quieter. One day I came home at 9. On the stove, 2 plates. Hers and his. Mine gone. Not in the dishwasher. Not in the sink. Just gone. I didn't ask. Just poured water into the kettle. Set it down. Didn't turn it on. It cooled. So did I. The doorbell is broken. I know this. But several times when I wasn't home, I heard it ring. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes in the afternoon. Lucas always appeared soon after. He didn't come over. He stayed. Not loudly. Not intrusively. Piece by piece. Like water slowly filling in the cracks. At work, a colleague asked, "Are you okay?" I shrugged. How do you explain that it doesn't hurt, it's empty? That inside it's not a scream, it's an echo? Later, I saw the photo. By accident. Julie had posted a story. Private. Not for everyone. But I was still among the everyone. They were sitting on a bench. No touching. No embraces. But with that look. His eyes on her. Like mine used to be. And she looked back. Not at the camera. At him. That's how you look at someone when they finally see you. When you exist again. I didn't cry. I hadn't for a long time. Not because it didn't hurt. Because everything inside had already been burned away. I sat on the floor in the hallway. Back to the wall. Knees to chest. Like a child hoping darkness will pass if you stay quiet. Water dripped from the bathroom. Drip. Drip. Each drop like a question. Slow. Inevitable. Drip. When did you leave? Drip. Why does he know how to make you laugh and I don't? Drip. What did I miss? Drip. There will be no answer. The water no longer warms. The faucet's still broken. I'm still listening. But now not to the house. To myself. Crackles, drops, footsteps. And one question that grows louder than all the rest. When did I disappear and why didn't anyone notice? Sometimes a decision doesn't come like a blow. It comes as the complete absence of any desire to save what's left. I found a box in the hallway. New. Sturdy. Untouched by time. Not mine. Not old. Not accidental. Inside her sweater. The one she wore on our first hike. Books with photo bookmarks. A photo album with us. At the bottom, a ticket. One way. To the city where Lucas studies. I didn't call her. I just sat on the couch. Not to rest. But so I wouldn't fall. She entered, hair still wet. Smelled of mint. Of the shower. Like she was trying to wash off guilt. Or memories. She looked at me. Not afraid. It's not what you think, she said. Calmly. Almost gently. I looked up. And what do I think? That I'm leaving. I'm not. I just want to be where I can breathe. Silence fell between us. Not like a wall. Like a vacuum. In it, there was no point in fighting. Words died before they could reach. I looked at her for a long time. Not at her face. At her posture. Her shoulders. Like a person looks at a house that's no longer theirs. Do you love him? I asked. She looked away. No pause. No pain. Just a breath. It's not love. It's necessity. He sees me. And then softer, almost a whisper. I would have stayed if you had ever said you needed me. And suddenly everything made sense. Because I did say it. In silence. In care. In small things. But not in the way she wanted. And not when she had already chosen someone else. I stood up. Walked past the box. Opened the door. Where are you going? She asked. Her voice without demands. Without fear. I didn't answer. Because this time I wasn't walking into myself. I was walking away from her. The box remained closed. The door slightly open. Some things don't need words. Some endings are quieter than a whisper. But heavier than any scream. Betrayal isn't a moment. It's a trace that follows you like a shadow in the hallway. And one day you just turn on the light. I didn't go far. Just sat in the car. The rain was just beginning, sparse, dry. Drops hit the windshield like unspoken thoughts. I kept my hands on the wheel and stared ahead. My fingers trembled. Not from fear. From emptiness. The next day I went to Lucas's parents. We hadn't spoken much, just seen each other a few times at holidays. But I knew where they lived. Remembered the house, the garden, the cracked step. His father opened the door. Then his mother came out. I said simply, "He's been living with us. Almost like family." Lucas's mother turned pale. His father stayed silent, lips pressed tight. No one sat down. No one offered tea. He said, she whispered, that you replaced his father. That you were a role model. I nodded. And Julie? Silence. Real silence. Breathless. They understood everything. And I didn't need to explain more. 2 days later, Lucas disappeared. Didn't come. Didn't write. Just vanished. Julie called. I heard her through the closed door. Why aren't you saying anything? I left everything. For you. Do you hear me? For you. She wasn't whispering anymore. Her voice was broken. Not from shame. From loss of control. Later, I saw the message. By accident. She had left her phone on the couch. Name, Lucas. Text. I'm sorry. I thought you were just playing. I can't carry this. That was it. The final stone in place. He was a boy who enjoyed the attention. Who didn't understand where it was heading. Who thought it was a game. Until it got too heavy. She, a woman who wanted to be seen. But chose the wrong person. The wrong time. The wrong truth. And me. I was just there. Till the end. Until I was replaced. That evening she packed a suitcase. As if quietly leaving the stage after a play that had long ended. I'm going to a friend's, she said. No excuses. No explanations. I didn't stop her. I had already left earlier. When something ends, silence doesn't come. What comes is a ringing emptiness where for the first time you hear yourself. Julie left. No drama. No slamming doors. She simply disappeared from the apartment as if she had never been there. Left behind a couple of boxes. Old books. And a note. Her handwriting, neat, steady. You didn't hear me then. I hope you hear me now. I didn't read between the lines. There was nothing left to look for in them. All meanings rung out. All pauses already played. Lucas didn't come back. I saw his parents. They didn't say a word. Just his father's look. Brief. Ashamed. As if I had made the mistake. I was alone. And the strange thing about that wasn't the pain. It was the freedom. At first, it's frightening. You wake up and no one is breathing beside you. You come home and no one asks where you've been. The sink is cold. The walls are silent. And then comes understanding. You were never truly alone. But you were lonely. On the third day, I took the photos off the wall. Not suddenly. Not in anger. Just a movement, a pause, a nail. The photo of Julie and me standing in the rain-soaked, young, holding hands. Went into the drawer. Then the trash. Without emotion. As if I wasn't clearing the wall, but myself. I fixed the doorbell. Myself. Spent hours finding the wires, studying the diagram, searching for the right spring. And at some point, a click. A sound. Clean. Steady. I sat on the steps. By the front door. And just listened. It rang. As if it was saying, "You're here now." Not someone coming. But you stayed. And in this new silence. Not muffled, not scary, but resonant. I suddenly realized. I was no longer waiting for her to come back. And for the first time in a long time. That thought didn't scare me. Sometimes the end isn't a bang. It's a period. No exclamations. No commas. Sometimes the consequence is you. Still here. Still alive. You don't become strong all at once. You just one day realize. You're no longer trying to return to where you were never wanted. 3 weeks passed. I still drank coffee from her mug in the morning. But now alone. No foreign scent. Just the taste, bitter, warm, real. I started talking to myself. Not like a madman, like a man checking if he's still alive. Sometimes out loud. You hear. The answer in movement. In having cleared out the clutter. Taken off the old sheets. Bought new ones. Gray. No past. No patterns. Just fabric. Just clean. One day a letter arrived. Not an email. A real letter. Julie's handwriting, that same slant to the left. I don't know where I've ended up. But maybe you found yourself in the place where I lost you. No signature. No request. No, I'm sorry. Like a breath. Like a full stop. I didn't write back. Not because I was angry. But because there was no need. I kept living. Worked. Read. Listened to music without fear someone would turn it off. Watch movies all the way through without explaining why that one. One evening I stepped out onto the balcony. The city moved at its own pace, slow, almost familiar. Same streets. Same windows. But inside nothing echoed anymore. I wasn't waiting for a call. Wasn't waiting for answers. Wasn't waiting for her. I just stood there. Calm. Whole. In that silence. Not the silence after a storm, but the kind after a long, internal whisper. I finally, for the first time in so long, breathed easily. And I understood. Sometimes strength isn't in the fight. It's in not going back.